story number 5. Francisco, we're going to go to you on this story. This is coming out of The Real Deal. I'll read you the headline, first couple graphs, and I'll ask you to just sort of provide some insight. Headline, Condra proposes Oceanfront Hollywood Beach mixed-use project. Subhead, Brooklyn-based real estate investment firm seeks to redevelop a motel assemblage near the boardwalk. And first couple graphs, Condra Property Group is proposing an oceanfront mixed-use project with condos and apartments near the Hollywood Beach boardwalk. Leaning on Florida's Live Local Act, Condra submitted the site plan with the city of Hollywood to redevelop a 2.4-acre assemblage of 25 single-story and two-story motels and short-term rental properties along North Ocean Drive and surrounding streets. The proposed 628,000 square foot development would include 137 condos and 91 rental apartments with some affordable housing units. Based in Brooklyn with an office in Miami Beach, Condra estimates the project will cost between $150 million and $170 million to build, according to the company's owners. The proposal is scheduled for preliminary review by the Hollywood Technical Advisory Committee on Monday. Francisco, when you wrote this story, a lot of headlines were made all throughout South Florida because this is one of the first examples where a developer is trying to take advantage of new legislation that's put in place to try to build more affordable housing. I think it's somewhere in the ballpark of 40% of a project must be allocated for affordable. And if a developer does that, they can build maximum density in a general vicinity. So this area, you got 1 and 2 story buildings. Suddenly we could have something that is tens of stories going up right in the heart of it. And there will not be any kind of standardization across the boards in terms of height limits. So can you sort of talk about this? Because this is the one story that everybody's pointing to.
Yeah, just basically, this new state law pretty much gives developers carte blanche to develop in areas that normally have real stringent zoning requirements. Hollywood Beach is a prime example where, along North Ocean Drive, there's a limit on heights. I think about, 5 stories, but because this law says if you allocate X amount for affordable housing in a mixed use project, you can build as big as another project that is, that has the maximum density within a mile radius of your property. In this case, it's the Margaritaville resort that is going to allow these developers to build basically a large project. And it's kind of like what's happening. It's happening in Miami Beach. You have the owners of the Clevelander Hotel also proposing to do a tower on Ocean Drive with an affordable housing component, and that's definitely riled up residents in Miami Beach, who are very reluctant to see the Art Deco historic district touched in any way. But developers, they're always looking for a way to make money, and single story, two-story motels and short-term rental properties is just, that's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it for them.
Now, Francisco, just a follow-up question. I tend to be a little skeptical. A lot of developers are getting pushback now because they want to take advantage of this Live Local Act. And the way it was sold is in response to some movements for rent control, like in places like Orlando. A legislature moved forward. They put in place this Live Local Act. They said, build affordable housing. We want to help the community. But I would remind everybody that there's no state income tax in the state of Florida, and the coffers for a lot of municipalities, schools, all that are basically come from property taxes. Is this really a way to sort of generate all kinds of additional revenue? Because, if you can put up 200 or 300 condos that are all assessed at 2% of their value, that's more money going into the pockets of politicians, school board members, and everybody else. So am I being a little bit too skeptical, thinking that maybe this is really a cash grab where let's put up as much as we can. Now we have more of a budget and we can dole it out as we see fit in a community where we just talked about how a city commissioner was arrested for alleged corruption?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime that they can increase the tax rolls, they're going to do it. They may act like they're all for preserving the character, but we all know that they they'll come up with developer agreements and then say, look, see, we got a compromise. We're going to get a public park, out of adding the a 33 story tower. That.
Francisco, we're going to go to Mr. Fakler on story number 6. Francisco reminds me back in the day at the Miami New Times where you worked quite some time. Miami New Times did a story taking a look at public parks or green space in the city of Miami based on some ranking that came out. So they went and they visited many of the parks. And what they found is a lot of these green spaces, they were located on the 8th floor on top of a parking garage pedestal with a tower above it. So swimming pool areas on some of these buildings were constituting green space. And in return, some of the high rises were able to be put up. And it reminds me of a project over in the Edgewater area where they took this park and they carved out half of the park and they built a high-end luxury restaurant for those people willing to drop $25 on a drink. They can go and they can visit the park.